Alrighty, welcome back, everyone. We've got the Facebook Live show and YouTube Live. I should mention YouTube as well. Back for another week, and once again, it's after an Origin Origin lineup wash up. We've seen one side basically just being able to just do what they want to do, go through the motions in Queensland. Obviously, New South Wales we'll get to has made a mountain of changes. Firstly, on a personal note, I just want to have a quick shout out to the old man who I know will be watching. In doing it a bit tough at the moment in hospital from this morning, so I hope you're doing well, Dad. Just shout out to you. I know you'll be watching either live or you'll probably be asleep by now, so you'll watch this tomorrow. So thinking of you, mate. I'll go up and see you shortly. But Jez, I'll go to you first because we're going to touch on this game a bit down the track, but I want to give you some time to quickly gloat. How was the weekend with the Henny Penny jersey on, loud and proud?
Well, it was a great little birthday present to myself. Turned 32 this week, so to have the Knights absolutely flog someone was just the icing on the cake. Pardon the pun. It was just nice to see them put a whole game together. And as I was saying before, we kicked 11 from 11. I know I'm a stickler for conversions, but geez, you win comps. You win comps when you kick your goals.
Yeah, and that's been a problem so far for you guys for a while, hasn't it?
Oh, dreadful. Yeah. But that was I know it was against the Bulldogs, the depleted Bulldogs, but not even so depleted, just against the Bulldogs. But it was nice to go down there and see them absolutely knock the skin off them. It was fantastic. And I've never heard a crowd boo their own team before like that. So that was another highlight of mine.
Yeah, we'll get to that.
Yeah, was that the only highlight? Was nothing else happened that day that was pretty good?
You bought me a Brookvale Union. That was pretty delicious. And a donut.
Yeah, there you go.
Thank you.
Oh, what a good bloke you are, Ads. How was it as a neutral going and watching one of the slaughters that happened on the weekend?
I had a great time. Look, it's always good seeing your mates. Like, I hate the Knights. It's always good seeing your mates get a good win. They don't get it very often, supporting the Knights, especially away from home, like that. Look, the Bulldogs were terrible. I had a great time just stirring the pot because it really didn't matter who I stirred the pot with. I was just stirring it. Players, I had some fun with some players both before and after the game, which we'll get to later on. But yeah, look, I don't go to many games usually. I usually go to probably 2 or 3 at Newcastle a year, just to take a young fella. But I've just been so busy, I actually haven't been to any this year. And he runs around too much on the hill, so it was rare. I never thought I'd go to a Bulldogs versus Knights game at a core stadium on a Sunday at 2:00, that's for sure. But I was in the area. These boys come down and met me and hobbled me way over there. And yeah, enjoyed watching Reid fail again. Let's be honest.
Yeah. Yeah. It's as a Para fan, you sort of look at him at the moment, and it's sort of you watch him sort of with a bit of a smile on your face or a cheesy little grin because it's sort of like you put this pain upon yourself. There was no need to go, but let's go on to the Origin side of things. And I feel like we've been a broken record all 3 games so far when it comes to Queensland. It's basically well done. They've been so classy on the field, but also off the field with their lineups, the way that Billy Slater has spoken throughout basically the Origin series. It's just been pick and stick really when that's all they really needed to do. They've won so convincingly. So there's not much to talk about for a Queensland point of view. AJ Brimson did get the fullback spot. Jez, just quickly for you, for Ponga, I know he did say he was ruling himself out to focus on the Knights this year with the head knocks that he had at the start of the year. But I'll tell you what, after the weekend, and I thought the last couple of weeks he's been in quite good form for Kalen Ponga. It must have been close for him to pull on that Maroons jersey on. Yeah,
I think it was a conversation at the start of the series as well. So him and Billy had that talk around, you're not playing this one, no matter the circumstance. And as a Knights supporter, I think you take that and you go, wow, okay, so he's really committing to the Knights. I know that there would have been players that would have taken that extra pay packet to go and play for their state, play on the biggest stage that you can. So it was it's relieving to hear him do that. I agree. Since moving back to fullback, where he should have been the whole year, he's been playing really well in what have been some really close losses. So it was nice to see him put things together on the weekend. But AJ Brimson, that's a pretty good lock for them. I think he'll do a really good job as well.
Yeah, and we see Big Red in the team, Corey Horsburgh as well.
Oh,
For everyone, he's finally in there. I've been calling for him all series. I thought he's had an unbelievable year, so it's good to see him get rewarded for that. By the way, guys, please put your comments in the section. Get involved with the episode. More people that do, the better the episode. Ads, anything for you to add with the Queensland side of things before we get stuck into the Blues?
No, not really.
No.
I said Brimson was obviously a pretty obvious choice. As Jeremy said, Ponga ruled himself out. I would have gone with Brimson anyway, just let him concentrate on that. But actually, Ponga's form was good. He's starting to actually play, like Jeremy said, since going fullback, he's starting to play good again. So it'll be interesting next year. I think Reece Walsh needs to get rid of the smugness out of his game. Where he's going to find himself in a bit more trouble and find himself targeted by players as well. Like we see LOI, like targeted by crowds, targeted by players and get them off their game. So if he doesn't get rid of that, Ponga could be in there for a lineup for a call next year. But I don't know, like, good to see Hopgood obviously up there, get the experience being around Origin. He's obviously one of the form locks at the moment in the competition, and it shows how good Queensland are going to have players in front of him. That's my German Shepherd crying, just FYI. She's sitting next to me, she wants some attention. But,
for a moment then.
It's a hard one for me because I said at the start of the year, Queensland 3-0. Obviously, with a couple more Parramatta players in the New South Wales team, I'd like to see New South Wales actually win the game, or it's going to, of course, be the Parramatta players' fault. But, I don't know, Queensland are $1.65 or something, which would be very rare for Queensland to be $1.65 in a dead rubber at Sydney. So.
I feel like it's a good segue here at the moment. It sounds like you got Brad Fittler underneath you, just sucking and in a ball of emotion, and he's just waiting for the next week to be over so he can finally go away and just get out of this Origin bubble he's in. New South Wales, once again, there is so many talking points to talk about with this team. We'll try and not to get too involved with everything and look too in depth. It's been said already in the media, but I feel like there's some shocks. There's some players, and we can go to Jez straight away. Bradman Best, we've got to bring him up early. Look, I know Adam's been on this case early on, and I think most have seen it in the past. I don't think anyone has any issues with Bradman Best's attacking side of things. I think we all know he can be a really damaging centre. It's his defence, which is an issue. And all I'm hearing at the moment is the reason Katoni Staggs wasn't chosen is because his defence. I'd put Best in the same boat as Staggs when it comes to defence. So actually, can you see Best and why he's there, or is there reasons that you feel like it makes him a New South Wales centre?
You ask how Jeremy me?
Anyone.
Let's start with me. Look, Bradman Best, when he was younger, was in the New South Wales teams. And I saw that obviously thing on NRL 360 last night with Brandy and Reedy having a crack at each other and said he's been around there. He's been a star as an 18-year-old. The problem for Bradman Best is he hasn't changed his game since he was 7 or 18 years old, and he was the biggest kid playing in the comp. All right, so when he was that young, all he had to do was barge over players. He can't pass the ball, okay? You had to put that now as I'm trying to talk serious, didn't you? He can't pass the ball. He's got a flick passing him. It's usually too late, or it goes forward. Yeah, all he tries to do is run over players. Now, when he was 17 and 18, he was one of the biggest players in the comp. Players didn't want to run at him because he was so big, so he didn't have to do much defence. To put him in Origin, he scored 3 tries against the Bulldogs. I get it. Most of them were created by good balls or other players making a breakaway. He didn't really do much himself. It's not like he got the ball, beat 10 players, did a chip and chase, and, scored a try. There's better options. We've seen him be exposed so many times throughout the year against the stronger teams, yet coming off playing one of the weakest teams in the comp that's had, 50 points now, over 50 points put on twice, had 48 points put on twice. I turned to Jeremy I think it was about a minute ago when the Bulldogs almost scored. And I literally said to him, that's the first time Bradman Best has had to make a one-on-one tackle on his line and he's missed it. Now, they got there and they held him up. He didn't, but it just shows like they're gonna tear him to shreds. Tago, better attacking centre, probably not better defensive either. Obviously, Staggs, he's been doing it for so long. He's had his Origin chance. But if they're really looking for the youth in the future, and, probably biased because we're Parramatta fans, but Will Penasini is one of the best defensive centres in the game, and his attacks really just come on in leaps and bounds in the last year. So He's done
Apparently, he wasn't even discussed. He wasn't in the conversation.
No,
I heard that.
I can't believe that.
I find that a load of shit too, because he's come through the system as well. Like, he's been one of those ones. He was in Brad Fittler's training squad at the start of the year for the development players. So, of course, he was discussed. By saying that, I think Brandy's just covering up the fact they knew they should have picked him. By him saying he wasn't discussed. And it's a big slap in the face to Will. But you've got to look for the future. Will's going to be there in the future. We know that. It's just, I don't know. The whole Origin series, they've got it. We'll move on to the other players. They've just got it all wrong. I don't know. I'm razzled because all Fittler needs to do is take his break, go on the gas or whatever he wants to get on, and just enjoy his trip, because it's clear that he's had too much with the decisions he's making.
Go walk around barefoot around
I'm happy, Juice.
Around Australia. So I feel like, and as you did mention about the Penasini thing, I just found that strange, the comments he's talking about, because earlier he was saying about people not being qualified enough because they haven't watched enough footy. That comment there summed up to me that Brenny hasn't been watching enough footy, because Will Penasini, whether you're a Para fan or not, you can't deny he's been one of the form centers of the competition so far this year. And if you're telling us that you guys are sitting there in a meeting and you're not even discussing him as an option when your first two choices, actually first three choices are out through injury, then you guys have something wrong with you. Jez, can you give us a 4 reason for Best being in the side?
Look, I wish him the best. I honestly do. I want him to have a solid game. Like, it's not his fault for all the criticism coming his way. It's all around the selection. Yes, he's a defensive liability. And then you look at the centers, like you've got him and Crichton in the centers, and you just think, well, I know where I'm running. All I can say is, from a Knights supporter, I'm really glad that Bradman Best is not on Dominic Young's wing, because Dom would not get the ball. He would not have scored that many tries, because Bradman cannot pass the ball. As Adam said, in his junior years, he just used to run over players, and he's still doing that. He can break tackles. I get that. He's a strong young man, and his attack can be really impressive. But his defense, it's like a revolving door. The Knights have leaked so many tries in through his side and through poor defensive reads. So it's a really bizarre selection, and it's because he is one of, Freddie's mates, and he's gone through the junior system through New South Wales, and he had big raps on him. But how does Matt Burton get looked over again? Like, someone who has done it, how does this happen? Is it because he had a poor game the last game? They say that they didn't pick Bradman because of the Bulldogs game, but did they drop Matt Burton because of the Bulldogs game?
Yeah. I don't get that, because then they've picked Josh Adokar as well for mine, and he's been atrocious.
Yeah.
he has been atrocious all year. I don't know what, he's the luckiest player in both squads to be picked for this game, because for mine, he would have been first dropped out of everyone. I thought he was absolutely horrible game too. There were so many times he was before the play, in front of the play before it even happened, and it just wasn't an option there. I mean, they were trying to do attacking raids, but in the back line as well, we've talked about Josh Adokar adds. Is this the last game we're going to see James Tedesco in a Blues jersey?
Yeah, we always knew they were going to pick him, weren't they? Like, before I get to the individual players, I'll touch on my thoughts on Freddie's selections. It's like he's tried to fix some relationships with some people, e.g. Cody Walker. It's like he's tried to keep fans of certain clubs happy, e.g. the Knights. Reg, exactly right. There's so many. If you look at some of the players and think Jacob Safidi, like, he never picked Jacob. I thought Jacob Safidi's one Origin game was excellent, which I was very surprised at. But he's not even the best player in his family. So he's not the best front row at the Knights. He's not the best player.
He wrote down the wrong initial. We know this. He wrote down the wrong initial.
He got it wrong. Like, I touched on it when we spoke about last Origin. What's Daniel Safidi done wrong? Because Daniel Safidi is consistently one of the Knights' best players every week. A team that is pretty poor, but I don't know. Let's talk on Tedesco. It's Tedesco's swan song. We knew he was going to get it. I don't think he plays Origin next year. The interesting thing for me is the fact that he's picked Gutherson at 17 and then Drinkwater at 18, and no Dylan Edwards at all. We'll get to the Gutherson one later, because I've got a lot to say about that. And then Drinkwater at 18. So he's pretty much saying that Edwards is the 4th best fullback in New South Wales.
Yeah.
So if you're looking at this correctly, next year Tedesco doesn't get picked. It's pretty much him saying he's going to pick Gutherson at fullback.
Well,
Like,
and you can probably put both Latrell and Turbo in front of him as well, because if they were both fit, he'd be selecting them at fullback first as well.
yeah,
So
look, I thought this was I know it wasn't going to happen because Tesco. I agree there's too many Penrith players in the system. I'm happy to see Yo drop back on the bench because I just don't think his style of football works at Origin level. He's a great player, but this was the game to give Edwards a run because there's no Cleary there. There's no LOI. Unfortunately, he's not playing Origin next Wednesday, and neither is anyone else. And obviously there's been Liam Martin. He was the only really one that deserves to be there. Tahoe's been good, but Crichton's been average as well. Crichton's going to the Dogs next year, so he's pretty much ruined his career. But for me, yeah, it's his swan song. We don't see Tesco. I don't think we see Fox again next year either. No. Yeah, but we'll probably talk about next week after this is done and dusted. But yeah, like I said, he's trying to keep clubs happy. He's trying to keep mates happy, which he's been doing the whole time. He's by picking his bench, he's finally picked players on form that he didn't have the balls to put in the starting team.
I feel like overall this side is summing up the series for New South Wales, and Brad Fittler and Greg Alexander have been basically clueless this whole time and have just never got this series right in terms of selection. And they're going to be paying the price right down to this third and final game. Like I feel like they're just trying to pick their tail up between their legs and fix things that have already happened each game. Like the first game, we saw that our hooker, Coruscant, was out and his lungs were burning with about 20, 25 minutes to go. So they tried to get another hooker in for the game 2. That was torn apart because then Cook ended up in the centres. Then they're going, crap, we need a back line to be put on the bench. And we're going to talk about the bench shortly. Then they've chosen Gutho now. Like, it's just all over the shop. I feel like this squad here, this side, it's like they haven't been able to balance whether they want to blood some people for next year or they want to win the game and go hard for next Wednesday night. I don't know where they're trying to go at with it. Jez, the forward pack, if there's anything that they've done probably quite right with what they've got available, it's probably the forward pack. It's a decent looking pack on paper. I know Jake's back. Jake's another funny one because they didn't pick Reg after one game for game 2. And they're saying Jake Trbojevic with a reoccurring injury that's gone twice now on him is good to go after one game. So it's an interesting selection there, but they've gone for Jake. Damien Cook has to start, in my opinion. Liam Martin, we've spoken about it earlier, had to have been there. Keon Kloamatangi has been in pretty good form for mine for South Sydney, and I think warrants his selection there. And I love Cam Murray at lock. I feel like, as Adam was saying earlier, Isaiah Yeo, it's sort of a bit stale at the moment. He's not really causing any worries in the defensive line for Queensland, so I think Cam Murray needs to be there. Jez, what do you feel? How do you like this forward pack?
I think it's a far better forward pack, especially comparing it to the Queensland forward pack. So looking at the players that are picked, they're the ones that you want. They're going to bring that aggression. They're going to bring that fire. I feel for a couple of the people that were dropped. I can't remember the young fella that Adam really struggles to pronounce his name, and I'm not even going to attempt it.
Stefano Udakamanu.
Played 12 minutes. That's all you get. Unlucky. I thought Fazell.
Sorry, I feel sorry for him because it says you've played 12 minutes. Oh, by the way, you've been replaced by the shit Safidi.
Yeah. DJ, I can't remember what initial I wrote down. I think Freddie's trying to get rid of both Trbojevic brothers for the year. So just to put Jake in the starting lineup, just to really give Manly one. Damien Cook has to start, you're correct. Regan Campbell-Gillard, yeah, he got one and then he was hooked, but I think he's definitely the type of player. He is an Origin player. He brings that aggression. He will bring that really sort of Clemmer, mad eyes sort of look, the one that Clem used to get, and you think, wow, here we go. Liam Martin, again, energy. Will run through a brick wall. Cam Murray is great. When you look at the interchange, though, the two forwards that they've got on the interchange, it's same. So they're swapping out players that are exactly the same. Like, it's not going to bring that X factor off the bench. It's not going to bring that impact of speed or that impact of force. It's Isaiah Yeo and Jacob Safidi. Like, I feel like the bench, like, I know we're going to go into the bench a lot more, But when you're looking at the forwards that are picked on that bench, it's same. Like there's no real impact that's going to come from those interchanges.
The biggest thing for me looking at the bench is he's pretty much saying he expects Jake Tavorovich to play 80 minutes in the front row.
Yes.
Because he has one front rower on the bench. He has Safidi and that's it. And Safidi isn't, like we saw his last Origin game, he wasn't a big minute player in Origin. Now, Reg is only a couple of games back from an injury. Yo's not going to play front row. Like, he could because, runs he takes, but Murray's not going to play front row. It's probably only Cluda-Matangi that can play front row, really. If you look at the size there, he's got it all wrong. Like, I know we're going to talk more about the bench. Do you want to go into that now or?
Yeah, I want to go onto the bench now, and I just want to say, first off, the 19, Spencer Leniu, and after what Jez has said, I feel like he's the perfect player who should have been first picked on the bench for New South Wales. He would have brought the grunt. He would have brought the crazy eyes. He would have been just in Queensland's face no matter what. He should have been the first prop forward picked for New South Wales for game 2. He was just a must. He was a must to bring in for this game. The way I see it for these youngsters coming in, it's no sort of lost situation. You go into a dead rubber, you either win the game for New South Wales and you're in there for your career basically, or you lose a game that not many people care about, and they probably forget about come next year anyway. So let these players like Spencer Leniu have a go. Now, Isaiah Yeo for mine, I think he's not anything. He's not a bench forward. He's either a start forward or he's not, and we're happy to move on from him at the moment and give Cam Murray his go. So it's probably a bit harsh, but I would have just dropped him and just had him out of the team altogether for this one. I think Jason Saifida have already touched on and let you guys talk more on that. Reece Robson for mine, I know he's the future, but if there's a hooker who can play 80 minutes, and we've all spoken about it in the past, it's Damien Cook. And just let him play 80 minutes, please. Like, let's not keep mixing this up and stop trying to copy Queensland's thought process with it.
Just before you move on from Damien Cook, guys, I don't know if you know this, but Damien Cook is actually a beach sprinter.
Look, Gutho has been arguably the form player of the last probably month of footy. There's no denying that. But he is not a player who comes off the bench. He's an 80-minute player who brings energy to a team, has some classy touches throughout that 80-minute period, and is just a complete competitor. We all know what's going to happen. It's going to be a Nico Hines story. He's going to come on probably for 10 minutes out of position. The whole state's going to get into him, make him feel bad for probably a mistake that's going to get made. And I feel for him now. So, Ads, I know you're pretty keen to get on the bench. I'll let you go first with this one.
No, I'd be better on the bench than some of those players, to be honest. But you nailed it. He should have been dropped. It's a great player, club level. That's some wonderful things for Penrith, but his style doesn't suit Origin. They need another front rower there. Look, talking about Reg, because I didn't really touch on that one, but Reg has been in better form than Junior for a couple of years. But to see Junior completely dropped, I thought was rough, given they haven't played him right in Origin. Same thing I questioned last time if he's an Origin player, but they haven't played him right. He needs big minutes and the ability to ball play, and obviously to take those tough carries at the start of the game. Coming off the bench, he's going to have no impact. Or Spencer could have been there obviously as well. But to have Robson and Gutho, well, I just want to say it, and I'm just going to drop it and say, fuck you, Brad Fittler, because you've just screwed Parramatta. You have screwed us big time. If Sean Johnson's missus doesn't go into labour this weekend, Parramatta could join the list because we've lost Gutho, Moses, Brown, right? God knows what could happen in Queensland this week, and Hopgood could come around and just to really screw us. We've got most of our spine out, but he's going to sit on the bench for the majority of the game. He can play hooker. He's played hooker for Parramatta before. We move him into hooker when we stupidly don't carry hooker on the bench. So why do you need Robson and him there? Look, for me, what I think it was is, we know Damien Cook wasn't picked for Origin 1. Once again, it's Damien Cook's swan song. It's Brad Fittler trying to, fix that little relationship from not picking him in game 1. He didn't need to be there. Reece Robson can play 80 minutes easily. So they should have gone with Robson starting, Gutho at 14, because I don't know why we're naming our utilities at 17 and 16. That also does weigh in. Utility wears 14, traditionalists. Yeah. Then I would have gone, even if you keep Yo there, he's got to play second row. Like Cam Murray can obviously shift to the second row. Spencer and Daniel Safidi. So, not Jacob. That's your 17. That's all your 17 needs to be. is going to frustrate me no more than the Parramatta fans, especially if we lose on Friday night watching Gutho play 10 minutes. I know last time Gutho played off the bench, Teddy got a head knock pretty much straight away, which really doesn't surprise anyone. The way he falls into tackles, and obviously Gutho got a lot more minutes, but he still needs next to Origin the centres. But I don't know. I just want Origin to be over. I hate Origin. Can we just get footy back to finals footy? I'm sick of it. I wouldn't care if my team was sitting 16th, to be honest, but it's a dead rubber. Like, why can't we go? I know it's about tickets and like TV deals and stuff, but
here we go. He's firing up. Here we go.
Well, yeah. Keep going. Why can't we just go to like an NBA final style?
Yeah.
If it's over at 2-0, it's over. And
I agree.
The reason we don't do that is because of money and playing a stupid Origin game in Adelaide. I know they get tourists, but they don't give a shit about footy over there. And so Queensland and New South Wales can have a game each. Simple. Go back to the old way. 1 game in Queensland, 1 game in New South Wales, 3rd game, if required, at Queensland. Opposite the other.
You're talking.
New South Wales. I'm talking sense. And
that's
the thing. The NRL don't care about sense. They care about money. All they care about is money. Oh, don't get me started on Abdo. I don't want to. He's pissing me off.
But this is the also thing, because what NRL will come back and say to you is that the revenue's there for Game 3. We got enough people watching. I'll tell you what will happen on Game 3, and this is what I'll be doing on Wednesday. I'll have it on in the background, but I can tell you right now, it won't be probably my focus. I'll switch to it here and there and look at it, but I'll probably be doing other stuff while the game's on and getting probably content or something happening. Who knows? But the other problem is there. If you play this Game 3, let's say, and let's talk about Cherry Evans, let's talk about Munster, let's talk about Moses. The NRL could quickly lose 3 or 4 of their big stars in the run to the finals and lose quality star power, which all these club teams will need to make the competition interesting and must-see viewing in the run home. And you could risk losing those players by playing this game that, to be honest, it doesn't mean anything. Like, all these past players can come out and don't say dead rubbers, things like that. But for us fans and things like that, it really doesn't mean anything at all. It's just, I'm surprised we're still here, because we copy America with so much crap. We in Australia, we love to copy the Americans. I just don't know why we are getting to the stage where we are not doing that at the moment. So, Jez, you got anything to add either on the bench or what Adam's brought up now, which has got everyone fired up?
Can I add about the crowd quickly? Because I've popped on and had a look while you were having your little rant, and you can literally buy tickets anywhere for Origin at the moment. So it just shows, once again, the NRL, they couldn't care if there was 50,000 people there on Wednesday night, because it's about the TV deals and the ads. And I do like, it's Big Mac tacos do sound all right. If you do it again, I'll see you on Wednesday night. But it's just something needs to change. Like, bring back the 9s while I'm ranting as well. All right, continue.
Well, you can answer this one, Jez.
Yeah.
Suspend the comp for 3 weeks in a row. I don't know if they'll ever do this. It makes too much sense, but I don't think
I don't hate it. Like, it would help teams out like Parramatta that have played around Origin every game. Like, you guys, we've had the bye. Like, there's been other teams that have had the byes. You guys haven't. You've been in the thick of it for each one of these games.
You're making me more angry, and I didn't mention that.
As Adam pointed it out to me on the weekend. I think, I don't mind the suspending, but that's still, like, if there's still injuries and stuff, they're going to carry over into normal NRL. As Adam just said, it's not a bums on seats thing, because people aren't going to show up. They don't care. Having Game 3 either in Queensland or New South Wales is a kick in the teeth to whoever gets Game 3. Yeah, we might fluke a random decider, but the way that this Origin started, we knew it wasn't going to go to a decider. And we knew that New South Wales were dudded this year in terms of having a game in our backyard. Yeah, I love that we don't have any Sunday Origins anymore, because that was another stupid experiment. It has to be a Wednesday night to keep it traditional. But yeah, look, I'm the same as Adam. I'm the same as you guys. I'm keen for Origin to be over. The hype's gone. I'll still have my Blues jersey on, but I'll probably be going to bed because, it's way past my bedtime before second half even finishes. So
I've got another suggestion. Just looking at that 3-week off thing. And we're going to relate to America again. Let's look at America and what they do with All-Star.
Before you start, I agree with Mika here. Having no NRL on the weekend does suck.
100%.
So, yeah.
I'm going to get to that. Let's make this call.
Women's Origin needs to be 3. Highlight that comment. Sorry, Adam, I keep jumping in.
We're going to get to that as well. But the All-Star Week they do over in America, they do so much stuff around it and different games and everything like that we could do here. Like the women's comp's about to start, for example. You could play 3 Origin games across 2 weeks easily. Right? They're athletes. They're professional athletes. They could handle it. You're in camp that whole time. You would have a 2-week break from the NRL, and at the same time, you could launch the women's comp easily. Now, you can have your women's Origin, which I agree should be three games. There's the stupidest thing ever having 2 games and going on aggregate. You could have that obviously earlier in the season before the women's comps launch, because obviously the season doesn't go as long. But you could really launch your women's comp across that 2 weeks, highlight that, you make it stand out, and then play your Origin. Players don't miss out. But the other thing I want to float to you is why don't we do game 3? We know it's a dead rubber. Players can't say, which really pisses me off. Players can retire from international football. Well, they should be able to unretire the year after, but they can't actually rule themselves out of Origin. I know Ponga's done it as well. Obviously, the head knocks, and it's a conversation with Billy Slater. But if a player turns around, we saw Jamie Lyon do it. Jamie Lyon turned around and he refused to play State of Origin. And they say, if you refuse to play State of Origin, you can't play for your team on the weekend.
Mm.
Now, it's the same up in the local Newcastle comp. You can't rule yourself out of certain games because then you're not allowed to play for your team. Like the Knights New South Wales Cup, they can pick players out of our local comp. And if you say, I don't want to play, they can stop you from playing from your local team. There's obviously so many things about it, but I can't say I'll play Origin, but I shouldn't have to miss out on my team game the week before because it means nothing. And it does mean nothing. I know we're talking about state pride or this shit. I don't really care about Origin. I've said that from the start. But why can't the players line up this weekend, go into camp Monday? They're still going to get 2 days of training and stuff. They clearly don't train at New South Wales anyway because they have no set plays. Like, there's better ways to do it. And I just reckon we don't play the game. Back to my original point.
We've gone full circle.
Didn't we?
Yeah. If they're going to make us play the game because they are for money, obviously they need to do something better. Like, you should be allowed to play your own club team.
Yeah, you should be able to nominate to play for your club. Absolutely, 100% agree there. Didn't we do Origin after the comp during COVID? Like we put it on hold until after, and that was fantastic. Do that.
It was just it was
that killed the Nines. The Nines didn't happen because the season went too long.
But what
that killed the Nines, and you know what else that killed? That also allowed clubs to pull players out to have off-season surgery. So that's the other risk with having Origin at the end of everything, is that it gives clubs a lot more power than it does mid-year, because you can't say Munster, for instance, Storm can't say Munster needs surgery and then 2 weeks later he's playing for the Storm. At least there, it's if they go back there, it makes it a weird sort of situation. But I just, it's one of those. It's a big topic that we're probably going to have to get back to over the next couple of weeks, because there is so many different options that we can discuss. That parts do make sense, parts don't, things like that. I feel like the other thing when you were talking about earlier, Jez, with the New South Wales side of things, when you look at it, New South Wales has been dudded a lot over the last probably 3 years when it comes to Origin. That time when COVID was around, all 3 games were up at Queensland. This year, for instance, we're getting a dead rubber. Like, this is one of the reasons why I always say it needs to be kept between Queensland and New South Wales. That way, you guarantee both states have at least one game that means something in their backyard every year. It just has to, it makes sense for mine. And then have whoever wins the series gets the second game as the reward in the year after or something like that. Maybe look into that. But that's all we're going to talk about for Origin. We've got to get away because it gets us all too fired up. We've got to move away and talk about something that we're all happy to talk about because it's not our teams, but the blowouts this previous weekend. And guys, once again, keep the comments flowing for this one, because I know there's a lot of fans for either the Dragons, Dogs, and the West Tigers out there that probably want to keep venting. They're still not happy. There was some absolute blow-ups. It was ridiculous what we've seen on the weekend. Firstly, I want to just say these are first-grade football clubs, and I've heard all the excuses under the sun over the last few days about why it's happening, things like that. At the end of the day, they're at training every day. These guys are signed up. They're the clubs that sign these players up, build rosters. No club at this day and age should be getting beat by that much. It was ridiculous to see. like for mine, like the Cowboys looked like it was literally just a training run. Whatever they tried was working. It was like the coach told the Tigers, "Yep, just let these guys go through and score. Just don't hurt them." And the same thing happened with the Knights versus the Dogs. Like, now I said this to Jez off air, is that it wasn't like the Dogs were versing first place. No disrespect to the Knights or Jez or any Knights fans. They were versing a team that was one position above them on the ladder, who in previous weeks, most people have written off to do anything at all this year. Like, have just said they're making up the numbers, where all of a sudden they made them look like they could beat any team in the competition. These two sort of put away what's happening at the Dragons. I feel like the Ben Hunt saga is just going to drag on. This will be the Dragons all year now. They'll just continue to get pumped. Ads, where are we at when it comes to this? Because I don't think, and people are starting to say it's the Dolphins stretching out the too much talent, things like that. But no one should be getting beat like this.
You nailed it. Like you said, no one should be getting beat like this. The whole reason the salary cap was brought in was to stop even out the competition, to make it not unfair. So you couldn't have your team stacking your team with players and obviously the bad teams. Look, the only one I want to give it a bit of an excuse to is the Tigers. Like, they've got a lot of injuries. They've got problems. They've lost Brooks. They've lost Appy. I was actually really starting to enjoy the Tigers watching them play, especially when they pumped the Cowboys only, 6 weeks ago.
Made the list.
They were entertaining to watch. I actually thought they could make a bit of a charge. They started to really click together as a team, started using Papali'i a bit better, some good young talent coming through, who I guess will kind of go on a bit more to do it. But look, as for the Dragons, you nailed that one as well. I feel for Ben Hunt, and credit to Ben Hunt for still turning up and trying. He tried on the weekend. He wasn't out there, he's trying as hard as he could in a pretty rubbish team. The fact they've turned around to Lomax and said he's not making any effort, you can go. I feel like Ben Hunt should have done the same thing, eh? Like, Ben Hunt should have not tried.
He needs to stop trying. Yep.
He needs to stop trying. They've slapped him in the face big time. But talking about the Knights Bulldogs game, honestly,
just quickly before you move on to that one, just on the Ben Hunt, what you're saying, I don't think anyone's ever questioning Ben Hunt. He'll be trying no matter what on the field. He'll give 100% every day of the week. For mine, it's more the fact that now he's involved with the club and the boys and all that, and they know that he clearly doesn't want to be there. And that has to, like, they might not come out and say it, but that would have to affect team morale at some way or another, is the fact that your captain, not just a player in the team, but your captain who leads you out every week, is supposed to be the guy that takes bullets for you and is always there for you, wants to do anything but be involved with your club moving forward. That has to impact your performance in some way, shape or form, week in, week out. And we've already seen it the first 2 weeks, but go on.
Yeah. Ben Hunt, like, no one's ever going to doubt his commitment. He's really a player that won't let your team down unless it's the 81st minute of the grand final. But look, moving on to, sorry, I couldn't help myself. Moving on to the Bulldogs Knights game. As I was about to say, the Knights weren't good. They played smart footy. They played, good attacking football. They really didn't have to defend. They dominated possession. Maitland first grade would have beat the Dogs. I have no doubt that any local, a lot of New South Wales Cup teams, they would have beat the Dogs. That's how bad they were. Like, we were calling it all game. The 5'8" for the Bulldogs. I don't know. I'm going to look up his name. I don't want to target Rajab. Mate, how he didn't get hooked, I don't know. The first 4 tries all come through him putting his arm out like this. It was like me playing with a shoulder injury, like just chucking your arm out, not knowing what to do. But he should have been hooked. I want to quickly touch on that game because we probably won't talk about much more because we already have. I don't have a problem with teams booing their players. I know Reid Marnie does. He thinks that they don't have the right to do it, but good comments, Reid. But as for me, I don't have a problem with it. You pay your money. You got to ride your emotions and all that kind of stuff. But I just want to give a shout out to Hayes Perham because he's gone across there as someone who hadn't played a lot of first grade. And I turned to Jeremy, I was disgusted by it. And they're probably lucky there wasn't some Bulldogs fans sitting around us because I probably would have gotten a punch up with them for sure because I like Hayes. I thought he was very underrated at Parramatta. But every time he touched the ball in the second half, the whole crowd booed him. Now, boo your team, that's fine. If you don't like it, boo them. Walk out, get up, walk out, whatever you want to do. But to target individual players that was trying his ass off, it's just, I hate it. Anyway, that's all I've got to say.
On what you're talking about there, for mine, if the Bulldogs have anyone to be angry at the moment, or if they want to have boo anyone, it's the club administration at the moment. It's Phil Gould. It's surrounded to a certain degree because they've signed someone like Perham, who talk to any Para fan from last year. They would have told you he wasn't a first grade starting fullback yet. He's not ready for that responsibility week in, week out. So they've gone all in on him, and he's pretty much not proven yet to be that week in, week out player. I'm with you. I think it's just unfair to be booing someone who's doing his hardest.
They got him cheap because they overpaid for Burton. They overpaid for Reid. They overpaid for Kikau, who's not even on the field. Pengai Jr. They've overpaid for Addo-Carr. Addo-Carr was on big money to go there and be a fullback, and he's never even been at fullback. They spent so much money on that. They're going to be stuck with these, let's be honest, fringe first-grade players. And as fans, you've got to expect that. Every club has weaknesses in their team. Every club. Like Parramatta have Isaac Limulini playing for them this week, but I'll talk about that more tomorrow night, tuning and talking Para. But every club did have weaknesses in their team, and they get better. Like they get better with time, and you've got to enjoy that. Like they're not going to get better by you bagging them out. We can go back to the Jake Arthur thing. Like Parramatta fans booing Jake Arthur, and we hated it. They're not going to better by bagging them out and turning around and not letting them grow as players. And they're idiots. Dogs fans can just be. They're some of the most passionate fans in the game, but they just went about it the wrong way. Like. As I think Jeremy's the one that said it at the game, or it might have been our other mate there, Alex. Like they should be booing the players on a bit more money than him, or the bigger players, because they're the ones that, like, he was at fullback. Yeah, they'll run around him at fullback, but they were getting through Reid and Tavita Pengai Jr. first, who are previous Origin players, or in the squads and stuff. Like they're the players you should be having the shits at.
Yeah, and the salary cap, like just here in terms of false economy and things like that, it's more so it's the fact that these clubs that are down the bottom, and all three clubs that got smashed on the weekend are the bottom three clubs at the moment. It's the fact that they keep overpaying on these players. Like look at Burton, for instance. Burton's a class centre, but that's what he is. He isn't a halfback. He isn't a 5'8", and that's what he's played at the Dogs so far in his career there. He's been playing out of position week in, week out, and he just clearly isn't that. And that's what's got the Dogs into trouble. They're paying players who aren't – they needed to put all their money – into a proper halfback, and they didn't do that. So,
Sexton.
Yeah, now they've got Sexton.
But sacking coaches doesn't help that either. And that's what got us. That's what turned us into a basket case of a club back in the early 2010s, 11, 12, all those kind of years. You sack a coach, the coach comes in and says, I don't want this player. I don't want, let's just say, come and says, I don't want Matt Burton on $700,000 a season. Matt Burton's been in bad form for 2 years. You've got one of your bigger clubs that can get third-party deals because the clubs that are performing get better third-party deals than the clubs at the bottom because people want to be on board and sponsor them. So let's say Parramatta say, we'd like Matt Burton in the centres. We've only got $300,000 left in our salary cap, though. The Dogs end up paying $400,000 a year for him for the next 2-3 years, whatever. And all of a sudden, they can't sign any more talent, so they still stay a bottom team. That's why it takes bottom teams so long to rebuild and why coaches, essentially, when you sack a coach, you can pretty much count yourself out of playing finals football for 2 or 3 years.
That's what happened at the Knights. We were paying overs for players that weren't even playing for us. Like we went through that funk through our transition of coaches. So what Adam's saying is absolutely correct. To touch on the booing from the crowd, they voted with their feet. So come halftime, half of the what they put on the board was 12,500.
11,000.
Yeah, I stood up and counted, and I didn't get that many. They voted with their feet at halftime. They left. But you're right, to boo individual players, especially the fullback who, a lot of players have to be run through, as you see on the footage, before they get to them. He was still taking the big yards and the hit-ups. I just want to touch on Josh Addo-Carr. I've only seen him play live a couple of times, but honestly, I said to Adam throughout the game, like, is he sick? Does he have the flu? Because the way that he was playing, it looked like he just had no energy. He wasn't chasing anything. Any of our line breaks, he was nowhere near. He was a passenger, a dead set passenger, and someone who is an Origin player, happily selected again, and will be, in all the videos for New South Wales with the boombox and doing all the PR for them. The way that he played for Bulldogs on the weekend was pathetic. Like I've never played rugby league in my life, but I could play a better game than that. That was poor. That was poor from an Origin player. But yeah, look, it was all the lower teams that were getting flogged. And yeah, Newcastle being only slightly above them. I thought, honestly, as Adam said, it was going to be a 6-8 scoreline or something like that. So to go down there and see them put 66 on them, the touching thing for me as a Knights fan was kicking them to 0, and the try save right at the end of the game there, that hopefully is a turning point in our season. So we'll see what happens next week. Oh, that's right. Form into next week.
Yeah, they went really well. They won 66-0, and as I said to a couple of Knights fans on the way out, they jumped from 14th to 14th. So
Yes.
big move by the Knights.
I got Dom Young as he was coming around. I said, "Are we going to take that form into next week, Dom?" And he goes, "Oh yeah, totally. We have the bye."
That was up followed by me. So I had a great time down at the fence. Like I said, we really let them enjoy their moment at the game. Went down all the players. Credit to the Knights players. Like there wasn't. You wouldn't say it was a big travelling away. There was a fair few Knights fans for the position on the ladder, but not what I've seen from the Knights over the years.
You'd say about 1,000. You'd say about 1,000 where we were sitting.
Yeah. Well, if you're looking at the crowd figure, probably 1,500 because I had to find another 500 people somewhere because they lied.
I was going to say 10,000 if you're looking at the crowd.
Yeah. But the Knights all come over and they all had down their head moments. And there was a couple of players walking over and they were kind of told, "Look, you boys, you've got to get back in the sheds now. We've got to go sing the song." So I've come out with, "Boys, it starts with we win, we win, we win," because I thought they might have forgot the team song.
Peter
I had a great time in Surrey.
You've got a great time here as well now because you're in charge of the next segment, and we're gonna go from the bottom teams to look at the teams who are in the running for the top 8 as we get closer. But it's starting to get to the point now where Adam sits at home and he starts to crunch numbers and look at things, which is always a dangerous time of year. We don't know what goes on in his head, but we're about to find out.
Yeah, look, I can't take credit for this. My brother actually sent it through to me, and some guy posted at the Parramatta group I run. But he's pretty much done a prediction, and I need another device. So give me a second because I'm just going to do this and drag this over here. And if you move this here, I feel like I'm on an infomercial at the moment, but I just need to get the ladder up and chuck it here. Pretty much, it's based on where teams are and how many games they need to win and stuff. Obviously, to finish out the year and make the finals. Given what we've seen in previous years. So we'll start at the bottom. And obviously, look, I'm not going to go through what buyers I have and stuff, but the Dragons have 8 games remaining. They need to win all 8 games to be a chance to make the finals. And you think they'd have to win those games pretty comfortably as well.
You're telling them there's a chance.
There's a chance. There's still, at this moment, everybody is still mathematically a chance to make the finals, okay? They need to win 8 from 8, so that's probably not going to happen. The Tigers need to win 10 from 9.
So they can't do it. They're out.
Tigers
put a line in there. May I add, both these teams can't win the comp because they've conceded 50, so there's no point playing finals anyway. The Bulldogs, they need to win 8 of 9 games to make the finals. So, look, tough ask. I could really sit here and I could break this down a bit more, but I have done zero research today. So
this is off teams needing to get to 32 points.
Correct.
Yeah.
So the Bulldogs need to win 8 of 9 games. Given you their run, they play Cronulla this week. They then play that's wrong. Sorry, they don't play Cronulla. Apparently, they're still playing Parramatta, and it's currently 34-12. So
Close game.
Never go to Google for your research. No, they play South Sydney this week, and then they play Brisbane, and they play Penrith. So safe to assume that they're not going to win 8 of 9 games. Thank you. You did the research of this. Basing on the next one, we have the Knights sitting in 14th position. They need to win 7 of 8 games. They've actually got a pretty easy run if you look at the Knights. I know Jeremy went through the run the other day, and the Knights, well, apparently the Roosters are ahead of them, but this is obviously done before the bye. The Knights now need to play. They've got the bye this week, obviously. Then they play the Tigers at home. They play Melbourne at home. They play Canberra in Canberra. And that's all I've apparently got on this. Look, I can't see them winning 7 of 8 games. I can't see them beating Canberra in Canberra. Melbourne's going to be a very tough ask. So as far as I'm considered, the Knights are done. Manly 6 from 8. They need to win. And they're just looking at like the next 5
They're
because you
gone.
pretty much eliminate them after that. This week they play. They must have the bye this week. Yep, and then they play the Cowboys, who obviously going to run at home. They play Cronulla, St George, the Roosters, Penrith, and the Warriors over there. So once
They're
again, it's a
gone.
pretty tough ask from Manly. They're done. Moving on, Roosters 6 from 8. I don't care who they're playing. The Roosters cannot win 6 of 8 games at the moment. Oh, okay. Apparently, I'm an idiot, but I'm just I'm going through. I'm just going through how many games are going to be all right. And if you think anyone else can scrape into
Fans are loving it.
do you want to join? Do you want me to send the streamline link and you can explain it if you're sitting there doing nothing? Sorry, just a weekly argument with my brother on the podcast.
He's probably at work.
No, he's not. He's sitting on his lounge commenting. He's like comic book guy in front of the freaking computer. But
Yeah, or he's talking to Gus. He's looking for a weekly
Yeah,
chat.
he's phoning Gus.
yeah, they've had a few conversations. Dolphins need to win 6 of 9. Cowboys 4 of 7. So they've obviously got a few buys up their sleeve. Cowboys are on a pretty big run at the moment. Oh, he's at work.
Yeah.
All right. Well, there you go. Work. Yeah, work. Yeah. Cowboys 4 of 7. Titans 6 of 9. Parramatta 4 of 8. Raiders 3 of 8. Warriors 4 of 8. South 3 of 7. Storm 3 of 8. Broncos 2 of 8. Sharks 4 of 9. Panthers 2 of 8. So it brings me to the point, and this is where I'm going to bring you guys into it. I'll bring up the ladder. Can you see any team currently outside the 8 making their way into the 8 now, given those stats?
The only one's really the Cowboys for mine, who are just outside on the 2 buys helped the Cowboys come in. But the thing with the Cowboys, and I heard this today, is that because, and Parramatta you could probably put in the same boat here, is because they started so poorly, they've had to get their run going really, really early, probably a lot earlier, more earlier than they wanted to do initially, the coaching. And the problem there is that now, if you do get any injuries and things like to key players, you get yourself into an awkward situation where a couple of losses quickly put you back down there. So it's a hard one. Like what you're talking about, I think from Manly down, so Manly, Dolphins, Roosters, and the rest, that they can't make it. Put a line through them. The Titans, for mine, could be a little.
Do you have the ability? Sorry. Do you have the ability to do that? Do you have the ability to bring up the ladder? I know how to do it, but you're presenting, so I can't.
Yeah.
Well, I can present, I think. I can present. I can do it. Hang on. Please hold.
Well, whilst you're doing that.
Yeah. Go, Jez. You answer this question.
Cowboys would be the other one for mine. I think the Seagulls might be the other smoky. I don't see the Titans doing it. I really don't. Just the way that they're playing at the moment. Dolphins, unfortunately, the dream is over. Roosters, no chance. Even with my Knights glasses on, we won't be making the 8. I need to find myself another finals team. Haven't had to do that for a while, but I like the Warriors as a smoky to be in there. But if anything, they're the ones that are dropping out, sadly. Rabbits will always be there. You guys will be there. So, yeah, it'll be the Cowboys. Cowboys will be the ones that jump in. Geez, this Troy needs to get on here, doesn't he, from Talking Para?
I think he wants to.
He's throwing out the barbs.
Where does it... Troy, bring these energies to a Para podcast, please. Tell you what.
Get out of the cave, mate. Get out of the cave.
I've just shared it for you. Do you know how to accept that?
Oh, yeah. Look out. Here we go. Add to stream.
There we go.
We're on here. This is fantastic stuff.
Yeah, but I've got to look over here instead of looking over here because you're there. So, looking at that.
This is really good for the listeners.
The ladder's not even right. Hang on.
No, it's not. What website are you on?
I just Googled it. Hang on.
Go to the NRL website. This is horrible.
I trust Google and...
It started with a rant about Origin, and now we're off the rails with dodgy websites. Adam, don't open your other tabs. We don't want to see what you're looking up.
Now, this is my work computer. It's safe, but I don't.
Incognito mode.
I can't believe I couldn't even get a correct ladder up.
Go, while you continue to try to find just the NRL.com ladder, which will be actually right. I'll quickly go on this one. So Parramatta are skating on thin ice. Storm away. Warriors without Origin players, Brisbane away, Cows away, Penrith away. If they lose all of these, they won't make it. This is what I'm saying about the fact that you had such a poor start. And I know Troy's listening, and he's on the podcast with myself, Adam, Maddie, and the rest of us, Hayden. And we said early on that it was panic stations because of this. And it was the fact that we knew what was coming towards the back end of the year. And the fact that we lost so many games early on that we should have won has really put us in a situation that has made it really hard to do anything in this competition. I know we're on a good run at the moment. We get Dill Brown back in a number of weeks, but we just can't risk much in this run at the moment and the run home that we've got. So
yeah, look, talking about it, and like I said, I can't get this later. My internet society doesn't want to work now, but
I'll try and look while you guys talk.
You're the host, mate. I'm just doing all the work.
No
we've got 4 home games. Warriors this week, Titans week after. We play St George and the Roosters. So really, you look at those games. Obviously, without the Origin players out, we win 4 of them. That's the 4 of the 8 games we need to win. We saw this coming, obviously, as I said. We then play the Cowboys. We play Melbourne the week after. Come back to Para for a game, play Brisbane, and then finish with Penrith away. So, look, we win 4 games, we make the finals. We need to beat the Warriors this week. In the current form we're in, there's no reason we can't win those other games. But I agree with Michael, and that's kind of what we said. We need to win a couple of those games at the start of the year.
Here you go.
Thank you. Is that one right? Yep.
Yeah.
Yep, looks all right. Looks good. We can't see teams from 12 down, but don't worry, they're done anyway. I've ruled them out earlier. But if Parramatta would win all 8 games, which I'm not saying they will, if they would win all 8 games or 7 or 8 games, they can finish first still. So it shows you how close the competition is. The benefit, obviously, is some of the teams above play each other. And obviously, if we beat those teams above us, we knock them off. But for me, I've done my ladder prediction, and I can't see it changing the games. What I can kind of see is in 3 weeks' time when Parramatta play the Cowboys, that game becomes a shootout. So whoever wins that game could go on a run. Well, the Cowboys can't win the comp, but because they've conceded 50. But whoever does win that game will go on a run and will push deep into the finals, is my opinion.
Yep.
Jez, anything to add?
My smoky is the Warriors. They have Parramatta, but all your Origin players are out. And if Sean Johnson's there, then as Adam said, you guys make the list. Unlucky. They've got the Sharks and then the Raiders. So they're 3 tough games, if you will. Their run home after that is Titans, Tigers, Seagulls, Dragons, Dolphins into the finals. So I think the Warriors are finishing a bit higher than 8th. I believe that if they stay fit and healthy, they can make a real run for it. And they're probably going to be my finals team because as a Knights supporter, I'm going to need one.
And we haven't spoken about the buys, but they do give you a bit of a false dawn on the ladder at the moment. And look at the Sharks, for instance, sitting in 3rd. They've had all 3 buys now. So around the teams around him, they haven't won as many games as them. So for mine, they're probably the team that if there is one that could slide in the back half that are in the sort of the top 4, I think it is the Sharkies. I think the Broncos win against the Dolphins is probably the win that they needed just to shake off this little wobble that they were starting to have. But I think, is that all we need to do here, Ads, for this share? You're happy with your segment?
Yeah, I just want to see how many teams are actually done. It's one of the most interesting things usually is the minor premiership is going to be tight. But one of the most interesting things is kind of that 7th to 12th barrier. And seeing, I'd love to see what teams and start to look at results and winning teams in that thing. You start to kind of support other teams, hoping that they'll, knock off the team you need to for you and stuff. And there's usually one team that makes a run. And form's a funny thing. You look at the Eels of 2009. I think it was the Roosters of 2010. You can go look through some other teams, but the Cowboys of 2017, those teams all made a late run into the finals and went deep into the final series. There's the only teams I can see doing that at the moment are the Cowboys and Parramatta. And look, it's just who's going to drop out to get them both there. And me, if I want my honest prediction, I think it could be the Raiders. I haven't looked at who they play, but consistently, I think they've been pretty lucky in some of their games.
They've got a couple of lower teams coming up. So they've got Bulldogs, they've got us, they've got the Dragons, I think, as well. So they've got a couple of good ones.
The thing is, they're minus 65 for and against, though, is the biggest thing. You look at the teams around them. Melbourne are above them on the same points, plus 65. Cronulla, 110. Brisbane, plus 95. Below and Para, 132. South, 96. Warriors, 42. The Cowboys, plus 38. So it's only 2 points difference. The Raiders They've won 10 games. They've already had 2 of their buys. They've got 1 bye left. So, yeah, looking at who they play, I'll bring it up quickly. Just to.
But the other thing with the Raiders is going off your amazing graph that you didn't do, your brother didn't do, and it was just a brother's mate. They've only got to win 3 out of 8 off that graph, so it's not like.
Which they'll do. They'll be there in the finals.
That's what I mean. I think they'll make. I think they'll make the 8. So.
Well, they play St George this week, so they win that. Well, maybe not. That bounce back factor is a pretty big thing. They play the Warriors in New Zealand the week after, and they play Newcastle and the Tigers, and they play Melbourne, Canterbury, Brisbane, and Cronulla. So if they've got to win 3 of 8, they really need to win this week. You think they'd beat the Knights, Tigers, and Bulldogs?
Yeah.
And you think they beat St George. But if they win 4 of 8 games with an added bye, that leaves them finishing on 34 points. The Cowboys were to win 7 of their games, they could find themselves in trouble.
Mate, you're just making too much sense tonight. You're a class above.
Not really. I've struggled the whole way through this.
Let's get on to the last segment of the night, and everyone get involved and post your questions as we go, or your comments and stories about this. But I have a feeling there was a certain player on Sunday that made you guys think about this in your little chat that you had throughout the game, and it's a talking point. We want to have a fun one each week, and it's players that should have been hooked or were hooked in games that we remember. I think you're talking about the 5'8" from the Bulldogs, Rajab, on the weekend, and how he lasted as long as he did. And I feel like the second rower could be in that as well. They've got a winger playing second rower in Ockenbaugh. I don't know what they're doing there, but I want to go first just because the one I want to get mine out early because I feel like someone might steal it, and it's the only one I've got.
Damn it!
I've got Manu Vatuvei.
Yeah,
I've got.
I remember it.
Manu Vatuvei at Parramatta Stadium against the Eels had an absolute Barry Crocker, an absolute shocker. He could not catch a cold in Antarctica nude that night. He was going that bad. And just stayed on the field. And we just kept peppering him with bomb after bomb after bomb. And we just get the ball back every time. It was fantastic to watch for a Para fan, but how he stayed on the field, I'll never know. I've got no doubt, do you remember the game? And it was just...
I remember it. And I thought to myself, this kid's going to be useless. He's never going to go into anything. He was very, very young into his career. And it wasn't just that. It was probably the next 2 or 3 times we played him, we continued the same treatment. It probably took him 3 or 4 times to actually learn how to get under a ball. But I remember a very, very young, I'm not saying he should have been hooked, but a very young semi-rad Raja being the same and just getting bombed and not being taught how to catch a ball properly. Wait, you keep out of the comments and I'll keep mine to myself, thank you. Jeremy can go next.
Of memory was a young Aquila Uarte when they figured out that he couldn't catch a high ball. So just consistently bombed, and I think he had like nearly 6 knock-ons in one game, but stayed on. The one when I was doing my little bit of research, it was an older player. His name's slipped me at the moment. I'm just trying to find my article, but he played 100 games of total of first grade, not NRL era, but ARL for the Roosters and for Souths. So it was when
it's like who am I?
Pardon?
We're playing like a who am I? This is great.
When he was 19 playing first grade in Sydney, he was playing 5'8", got hooked after 7 minutes. So apparently he must have just had the most horrendous start to a football game. I think they only scored 18 points, but I think it could be. Got hooked and took himself to the pub. So he said, you know what, I'm done with this. I'm going to have a quick shower, and walked over to the pub and finished the game a couple of skewies deep. So that's that was a funny read when I was trying to find classic people being hooked. But then you've got honourable mentions of, is it Ilias?
Yeah.
Sydney.
Yes, South Sydney. So this was last year. Demetrio gave him the hook 27 minutes in. He had a shocker. I watched the highlights and went, oh yeah, he probably deserved to be taken off.
Was there highlights?
then started the next 4 games. So, whatever.
Right. I'm going to play that have been hooked. Like one of the ones that sticks out and funny is in Origin, so it was Cody Walker in Origin when he got hooked during the game. But players that should have been hooked, well, Michael's now one. Wonga Blake is probably the only Blake. These are honourable mentions, by the way, who he should have been hooked because 2 games in a season he pretty much cost. So he almost cost him the game down at Melbourne. We all remember that one where he couldn't get under a high ball and they just bombed him. And then obviously Penrith did the same thing to him and just absolutely terrible. The fact he couldn't learn how to catch a high ball, and look, probably a good thing that Isaac Lim is there this weekend. Now I think about it. But as the players that should have been hooked and didn't get hooked, I can't go past this one. And Troy Warner, you're going to hate me. The fact that Paul Carriage did not get hooked in the prelim final in 1998 for the Parramatta Eels still amazes me. 18-2 up. And what was the full-time score in the end? Troy, you might have to help me with this one. I think it will end up being...
He had money on him. He had to have had money on him.
Well, if you read his... If you read it here... Now, he wasn't in the team. He got called in the team late due to an injury. He played 45 games for Parramatta. And I'll read you what Wikipedia says. 32-20 end up. I remember it being 1918. And he was just... You can watch it. If anyone wants a good laugh, obviously not Parramatta supporters, just Google Paul Carriage game. It pops up every now and then. It's the worst game you'll ever see in your life from a professional footballer or semi-professional. I'll read you this.
Story time with dads.
I can't read you the whole thing because it literally is this long about errors. But the most interesting point, the Bulldogs went on to win the match 32-20 and would subsequently qualify for the 1998 grand final against the Broncos the following week. Despite being contracted for the Parramatta club until the end of 1999 season, Carriage's stint with the club ended after this match. So he didn't get hooked in the game. He just got asked. It gets better. Guess where they sent him, boys? Off the Super League. The Super League. So, he come back after his time in the Super League and played some New South Wales Cup and did some other things. And this is the part about his Wikipedia page that gets me the most. And I remember seeing this, and I know Troy's had him on his podcast and stuff and all those kind of things. In November 2018, Carriage unexpectedly made a comeback after several years in hiding. So we know why he was in hiding. Taking to the field for Parramatta in the Legends of League tournament. He should never have been allowed near a Parramatta jersey again, let alone in a Legends of League tournament. That's all I've got to say about Paul Carriage.
Did he play the full game?
He didn't get hooked in the Legends of League. I remember that game. I remember exactly where I was sitting. We were sitting up. Do you remember the old Allianz Stadium? He had the top section and the bottom section. We were sitting in the corner where they had those little sections. They had the little sections where you could sit up on the end of the in goals. We were sitting there. I remember sitting there with Dad, my brother. I think my pop was there, and Dad's best mate. And I would have been 7. And some of the words I heard from everyone around me that night, I'll never forget. And that wasn't coming from just my father. It was coming from everyone. It was terrible. So, yeah, that's the greatest player that should have been hooked. Well, they essentially hooked him. They tore up his contract, but still, yeah. Anyway.
That's all. Look, on that note.
Sorry, can you just put that one up? Just.
They won that year.
Yeah. Put it up for me.
Yeah, they won that year.
Troy, you can polish a turd, but it's still shit. Okay.
All right. Adam has been it's been one of his best shows so far. He's just been.
I think I'm going to get hooked. I hardly said a thing tonight.
I couldn't get
there was too many rants tonight. I feel like a lot to get off the chest. Jez, give us your final say.
The boys played well. I can give you my Adam O'Brien post-match if you like. I'm pretty good at it at the moment.
Yeah, go.
Oh, you're probably going to think I'm silly sitting here, but I thought defensively we were really good in parts. Kalen is playing really well at the moment. Oh, I think definitely my job's on the line. Definitely.
Can I ask you a question? Can I ask you a question, Adam, about Bradman Best?
Oh, Bradman's. Oh, it's every week.
It's monotone.
There's a bit of a hook about that as well. That was fantastic. That was like two into
I
one.
think we caught that
loved
the whole way home from the game on Sunday.
Oh,
that impression.
yeah. Watching
Well,
press
look,
conferences in the car, riveting.
Yeah.
I'll promise everyone this. Next week, we'll be back on Thursday, so we'll do post-Origin wrap-up and talk about the future of the Blues, which will no doubt we'll be wanting to talk about and the plans moving forward. But Jez will have a dedicated show in the show. So he'll have his own segment where he'll just be able to unleash. You can do a post-Origin unleash, Jez. So that's your homework for this week, all right?
It'll just be a Bradman best praising, so I can get a jersey off him.
He's still too happy this week. He's still too happy this week after Sunday to blow up. He hasn't got a bad word in him.
Mate, we're going to win the comp.
They've only got to win 7 from 8. They'll do it. All right, guys, we've taken too much of your time. I thank you all for sticking around and listening and getting so involved. We always find these Origin ones go off. People are always passionate about it. We just seem to go off on rants, and all of a sudden it's been 40 minutes in. So enjoy Dogs fans, Tigers fans, and Dragons fans. It's a new week. Enjoy hopefully getting a better result this week. But yeah, we'll see you all next week now, Thursday. So catch you then.